Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Kenny. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention's Senior Manager for the Overnight Walk. I've been working on the overnight and the Out of the Darkness walks for almost 9 years, and before that, I was a walker and a volunteer. September is National Suicide Prevention Month, and in honor of this month, we're highlighting AFSP's Out of the Darkness walks. Since 2002, AFSP's Out of the Darkness walks have brought friends, families, neighbors, and colleagues together to walk through their communities to raise public awareness and funds to support suicide prevention. We have 3 walk types. Our community walks are AFSP's signature fundraising series with more than 400 walks nationwide, a lot of them taking place this fall. Our campus walks are 5K walks each spring at colleges and high schools across the country to engage young adults in AFSP's mission. And the overnight, AFSP's flagship fundraising event. The overnight is a challenging endurance walk from dusk to dawn that rotates cities each year. Joining us today, we have 2 amazing people who have participated in our walks, who each come to them with a different connection to the cause and can talk about what's so unique, special, and powerful about these events. Kenny Cruz and Dr. Kevin Yadis. I'd like to start out by having you briefly introduce yourselves and talk about your connection to suicide prevention and what brought you to the walks in the first place. Kenny?
Hi, my name is Kenny Cruz. My connection is that I myself was suffering with suicidal thoughts and depression and had planned on killing myself. As I came through that, I found AFSP, and with help, like with their help and other organizational helps, like I was able to come through it, and now I want to help others, do the same thing.
Thank you, Kenny. We're so glad you're here. Kevin?
Hi, I am Dr. Kevin Yadis. I'm a faculty member at McNeese State University in the Department of Psychology and Counseling. I'm also a licensed professional counselor, and my connection is as a counselor. So adolescents, that's my favorite group to work with. In our department, we have a graduate program in counseling. We have a clinic that is attached to that. It's a training site and also a community clinic. And through that, we have a collaboration with a local high school. And so I had just started as a faculty member. It was my first day going to this high school to provide counseling. And I had about 7 students that I was scheduled to meet with that day. The third period, I was scheduled with a student, and that student had been admitted to an adolescent psychiatric unit here in the Lake Charles area. So I immediately realized, okay, something's going on here. At the time, I didn't know is it just a school? Is it this area? What's going on? But I realized that, this is something to pay attention to. 2 periods later, I ended up doing a suicide risk assessment with another student. And so I drove back to campus that day, and I thought maybe there's something larger that our department, our clinic can do in the community. 2 days later, I received an emergency call from that school that a student that I just met 2 days prior had mentioned suicidal thought and behavior. So I went back to the school, did another suicide risk assessment, and I spent the weekend thinking about what we could do with this school and in this community for adolescents. And that Monday, we started putting together the pieces for a suicide education and awareness program within our community clinic and training site so that we could have a bigger impact in the community. Through that, I was asked to chair our local walk, the Lake Charles Out of the Darkness walk. And at first I said no. I was concerned about having enough time. And then I turned around and said yes. And so this fall, 2022, is my 4th year as a co-chair for the Lake Charles Out of the Darkness walk.
That is incredible. Thank you. Thank you both. So one of the traditions at the Out of the Darkness walks is the honor beads. So my honor bead colors are green for my personal struggle and lived experience, purple for the loss of a friend or relative, rainbow for the LGBTQ+ community, teal for those that I know that struggle and have their own lived experiences, and blue to support the cause. We have 10 honor bead colors that represent our connections to the cause, and you can learn more at afsp.org/honorbeads. Could you each share your honor bead colors?
Yes, my honor beads colors are green, obviously for my personal struggle with suicidal thoughts and suicide, and teal for loved ones and family who've struggled or made attempts themselves.
Thank you. And Kevin?
So I have two colors that I will wear. Our walk is in a few weeks. I've got the beads right here. We're prepping for our walk, so I'm going to be wearing blue as an ally, and then I know that I'm personally very excited. This is the first year that we have the rainbow beads for the LGBTQ community, and so I will be wearing both of those for our walk.
Amazing. Thank you both so much. So Kenny, I thought I would start with you to kind of break into our little conversation here. Your story is so inspiring because you were in a very dark place. You have what we call lived experience, meaning that you've had a moment where you seriously thought about taking your own life. But you gradually learned to manage your mental health and found ways of coping. Could you share a little bit about what helped you?
Yeah, so I used to be really into exercising and fitness. And when I got really depressed and really sad, I stopped working out, I stopped running, I stopped seeing friends. I just I didn't want to see anybody because I thought that they would judge me because of what I was going through. So it slowly, gradually, I started exercising again, taking care of myself, talking to people slowly, but not many people, but I was very unsure still. And even after I came through it, I still didn't really tell my closest friends because I thought they would judge me. So I would, I reached out to like online groups, and AFSP was another organization that they had like all these resources that I used. And then, as now, 4 years removed from that, it's like I can't believe that was something that I actually had thought. Like just how far I've come since then. It's like I'm living proof that things can get better.
Oh, I just got chills. That's amazing. I like the fact that you're here today is incredible. I love that you're talking to us, and I appreciate you so much. So Kevin, I know that you work with suicidal adolescents. And I also want to ask you about suicide prevention as it relates to the LGBTQ plus community. Why is suicide prevention important to you, and what brought you to the walks?
Sure. So that adolescents, that is my preferred population to work with. I've always liked working with adolescents, and in working with adolescents, identity comes up a lot. It's a natural topic of conversation. They might be thinking about who they are in the world, but it might be much more specific to what do they want to do after they graduate from high school, which they typically don't like to be asked that question. But identity issues are commonplace. Part of identity, of course, can be sexual identity as well. And what I found, I went through a time period as a clinician where I was working a lot with adolescents, and then less so. And so when I returned to working with adolescents through the collaboration we had with a local high school, the identity issues were there again. They didn't go away. And I also noticed too that in the probably 8 years, 10 years where I hadn't been working as closely with this population, that identity had the way that younger people referred to their own sexual identity had changed a little bit. And so the conversations around identity and sexual identity were really commonplace, really, really common in sessions with most clients. It wasn't just a matter of gay or straight, that they were really seeing sexual identity as a spectrum or on a continuum too. And so these conversations came up a lot. And when these conversations would come up, there would be, we would have conversations about the struggle around considering their identity, whether or not they were going to be accepted by parents, by guardians, by loved ones, by their friends, by their church community. And that I also found was sometimes mentioned when the adolescents that I was working with were thinking about suicide, were talking about suicidal thought and suicidal behavior. many times it was tied back to that identity, and sometimes that identity had to do with their sexual identity.
That's incredible. I cannot imagine the impact that you have on youth that you work with. Thank you. So I'd like to open up the conversation. You know, you can both feel free to hop in, whatever you feel like sharing, but I do have some more questions for you. So for someone who might be interested in attending one of our walks for the first time, but might be a little hesitant, what would you say to them? Could you talk about what it's like when you showed up for your first walk and what people might expect?
Well, for me, when I first showed up, it was very overwhelming because I didn't know what to expect. Because even though I know it was like an overnight walk, I didn't know what to expect because I've never done it before. And like seeing the videos and the pictures don't do it justice. Like when you see all these people there who are there for the same goal, and to talk to people who, you know, themselves have struggled or, you know, have a connection to, you know, suicide. And it was just, it was like overwhelming. Like I actually had to like sit down and like take a moment and just like let it sink in because it was a lot. Like it made me feel like welcome in a way. Like I wasn't alone. Like I knew I wasn't alone, but that made me feel more like you know, I was part of something. Yeah.
Thank you. I personally love that because, you know, I work on the overnight. So I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, that's amazing. And I know, you know, that you represented our green bead this year for the overnight. So I just thank you again for sharing. And I appreciate you saying that because I think when a lot of people do come to walks for the first time, they have no clue what to expect. So you kind of have to like feel your way into it. Kevin, what was your experience like?
So my first experience with one of the out of the darkness walks was as a co-chair, and so my experience was very different than many people might have when they first get involved. But what I've recommended to many people who are considering coming to one of our walks is to go with a friend or go with a family member, and then if that isn't possible, I'm also a team captain of the team for my clinic at my university. And so I will offer, join our team, come walk with us. I will likely be busy that day, but there are certainly going to be other people who are team members for us who will be able to talk to them and walk with them.
Yeah, I love that. I always have an open team as well for the overnight. Not that I can be the captain that I want to be because I'm so busy doing other things, but you know, we want to have teams. We want to have people know that they're not alone. They'll come meet new people. They're, you know, they're surrounded by a community that's ready to accept them. So another thing I was thinking is, do you guys have any specific memories or conversations that stand out at the walks? Like something that was very meaningful to you and what walkers tend to talk about that you can share with first timers?
Yeah, I mean, I would say since as I was part of the honor bead ceremony, that like you know, a spotlight on me because I was on stage, so people felt comfortable coming up to me. So throughout the entire night, I would have just random people just come and say, "Oh, you were the guy on stage," or "Hey, were you the guy on stage?" or you know, like, "Thank you for sharing your story," like, and telling me like they had a similar experience, or you know, they've had a relative who, you know, hadn't reached out, and unfortunately, you know, so it's just it made me feel good that like, you know, I'm here to tell my story, and that it resonated with a lot of people, so they were able to understand. And like I had like random people high-fiving me all night, hugging me. Like I actually had somebody walk with me the entire time who I had never met before. Like, and I still communicate with them, and it was just like, yeah, it was nice. I made a new friend. Like, you know, it's like, hey, you know, they were like, "Are you by yourself?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm by myself." She's like, "You want me to, you know, can I walk with you?" I was like, "Go right ahead." And it was very interesting just seeing the sense of community from every, you know, from day to day, you know, from when I got there till I left. It was amazing.
Yeah, that is like the epitome of the walks, right? All the walks. Like we have the honor beads to make sure we're all connected and we know each other's connection to the cause and it connects us to each other. And we have the honor bead ceremonies at the walks so people can see, oh my gosh, they have a similar story to me. I need to meet them. I need to make this connection.
Yeah.
Love that. Kevin, what about you? Sorry, Kevin, do you have any specific memories of conversations that you've had with someone else at the walks?
Okay. So Okay. So for me, I think it's two things. One is I remember my first year um, uh, attending a walk, and again, I started as a co-chair, and so I wasn't familiar with the walks. I wasn't familiar with what I needed to do with as a co-chair, and so I was learning it as we were putting it together. And somebody in the community reached out to me about the walk, and I provided information, and I saw that person at the walk with family, and they had t-shirts. They all had the same t-shirt on to honor the person that they loved who had died by suicide. And I guess I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about the way that um, uh, you know, family and loved ones would come together with a specific purpose in mind. Of course, I knew that we would have people with lived experience and people who had lost somebody to suicide, but I guess I hadn't considered the effort that people would put into what their own experience would be at the walk. And so I see this person every year, and for 3 years in a row now, and I'm sure I'm going to see this person again the fourth year, and it's always the same t-shirt. And so that was a really moving experience for me the first year, and really every year as well. I also think one other thing that and I had this I guess kind of realization last year that the work that we do with suicide prevention is really work with mental health and work with behavioral health. And that probably sounds really obvious on the surface, but many times my students, my graduate students in counseling will talk about we need to address stigma. Well, we all know that that's tough, right? And if you want to do something like a billboard campaign or make some type of flyer or pamphlet to pass out, that's fine. But you would need to do that for a long period of time, really sustained effort to make a difference. But what I've seen is in the work that we do with these walks, it's very specific around suicide prevention, but we always end up talking about mental health and mental health issues as well. So the work that we do with suicide prevention is helping to not just address the stigma around suicide prevention, but address the stigma around mental health issues and seeking mental health services as well.
Well said. Cannot talk better about the walks if I wanted to. That was perfect. So we each have a specific connection to the cause, right? Whether we've lost somebody, we have lived experience, or we feel passionately about suicide prevention. Why do you both think that the walks are so important? Does it send a message to society? Is it about raising awareness and funds? Is it about being there for other people? What's the most important thing to you about the walks from your own perspective?
I think for me, it was a twofold thing. So when I did the actual walk, it was being for other people. So I specifically remember meeting a couple who actually they were on the stage with me as well. They lost their son, unfortunately, to suicide. And like after we were done and everything, like, you know, they consoled me and thanked me for being here. And I was just like, you know, like it was a little bit of like I felt not ashamed, like, you know, that their son couldn't be here with them. Like, I don't know what the feeling was, but it was just like a hurt because like they unfortunately were there for that reason. But it was just like, you know, but they were still there. They had the strength to be there. And it was just, you know, I was like, so that made me feel like, you know, I touched somebody, you know, unfortunately in that situation. It was just, they, you know, it was just, and I even saw them when I finished. When I was done, I remember sitting waiting for like final everything, and then all of a sudden, like I saw, you know, them walk, you know, him, husband and wife walking hand in hand, coming up through the lanterns, and I was just like, oh my god, like, and I went, and I just hugged them, and I just because like we all had just had that, all the emotions of the night, we all just, you know, dealt with them and just in our own ways, but best as we could.
Thank you. Perfectly said. Thank you. Kevin? And Kevin, what about you? What do you think is the most important thing about the walks from your perspective?
For me, the walks. One of the things that I love about our walks are, um, well, let me back up a little bit. Whenever I'm talking about suicide prevention, whenever I'm providing maybe one of the AFSP trainings, people want to know about statistics, and we offer that in our trainings, obviously, and so they want to know about the number of deaths by suicide. And one thing that I always add is that for every one person who dies by suicide, it's estimated that about 25 attempts, and that number is much, much higher for adolescents. Research shows that it's for every one adolescent who dies by suicide, about 100 to 200 attempts, and those are our best. That's our best information right now. The numbers are probably a lot higher, and I usually share that whenever I'm talking about suicide prevention, because for me, what that shows is that there's such a focus on deaths by suicide, but there are many more people out there struggling. And sometimes even if somebody attempts and they don't need any type of medical intervention, they might not share that with anyone. And if they don't share that with anyone, then they're left to suffer in silence. And so these walks, when I can stand back and just look at the numbers of people in attendance, it's a visual show of support for anybody who's there, or anybody who's watching a video at home, or anybody who sees a picture that's posted of one of our walks on Facebook or Instagram or any social media, of the support that really is out there, so that people can understand that even though they might feel alone and right now they're struggling maybe in silence, they're not alone.
Wow, your answers, both of you, incredible. I was thinking, like, how would I answer this question? And I don't have an answer. Like, I don't know, because all of the walk is important to me. And I don't have the words. I've tried to write the words and explain the words to describe the walks, and what, like, the most important things are about the walks. And I think you both nailed it. You said it perfectly. But I think, like, the walks, all three walk types, like, are just made up of hugs and love and healing and growth and strength, and just wanting to change the world and save people. And I think, I don't know, I admire you both so much for being here and for talking about it and sharing. I can't thank you enough. I do have one more question for you both. What does the phrase "out of the darkness" mean to you personally?
Personally, it just means, exactly what it sounds like. You came out of the dark, you came into the light. It's literally walking from night to day. Like, for me, it was just seeing, like, the sunrise and being like, I get to see another sunrise. Like, I was in a really dark place where I had these thoughts, and then now it's like, not everything is sunshine and roses, but everything feels a little brighter now. And it did when I was in that period of my life.
Beautiful. Thank you. And Kevin, what about you?
So this is something that I've given a lot of thought to, a lot of consideration for, and for me, there's kind of a parallel with where we are right now with suicide prevention, and where we used to be with other topics like cancer. So decades ago, if somebody in your family was diagnosed with cancer, they might not talk about it. They might not share that with even with family members. And if it was mentioned, they might whisper the word that our aunt has cancer. They would whisper the word, and that's in some ways where we are right now. And so my hope is that through the work that we do with suicide prevention, and through these walks as well, that we can bring that out of the darkness and just make it a topic of conversation that, while still uncomfortable and challenging because of the nature of suicide, will be less stigmatized, and there'll be less concern about having casual conversations about suicidal thought and behavior.
I agree. I think the more walks we host, the more walks we come to, the more we will do that. I think like talking to you both today was such a moving experience for me. I think that's what Out of the Darkness means for me, is being able to connect with you both and all of the members of our communities. It's life-changing to meet all of you and to know you both. And I just wanted to thank you both for sharing your different experiences about the overnight and the community walks and adolescence. It's been great to speak with you, and I just wanted to thank you for joining us. And I hope everyone knows that watches this, that there is a walk for you and there is a place for you. And you can go to afsp.org/OOTD to find your walk. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.